Okay, so welcome to our office hours, our Cohort 26, 21st century office hours. Today is December the 10th, and we are excited to say that the new RFA was finally released yesterday. It was sent out to the superintendents statewide, the LEA superintendents, and once we realized that it had been released and sent out, we made sure to get that information to you this morning and get it up on the website yesterday or last night. And so you should have access to that information. We highly encourage you to go to the ALSDE website. Let me show you what that looks like now that I'm sharing my screen. Give me just 1 second. So when you go to the 21st Century website, this is what you will first see when you log on. That is the www.alabama21cclc.org address. You can click here to learn more, and it takes you to this information. So first of all, we are going to have to update several dates for the RFA just because, for several reasons. One is because the RFA was released way later than we intended for it to be, just due to the holidays mainly. It was the main issue. Part of it was also my ignorance and how I knew that things take a long time here at the State Department, but I just didn't quite realize how long they would take, especially with the holidays being here and people being out for various, Thanksgiving and Christmas and visiting their families. And when it has to be routed through so many different people through the State Department, sometimes it ends up sitting on someone's desk for an extensive period of time. So that was part of the problem. And then we have the same issue now occurring with building the application in EGAP. That is also going to take longer than originally expected. So right now, we know we're going to have to update some dates, but we're not exactly sure what those dates are going to be. We're trying to get some feedback, a little bit more information from the IT department to let us know how long that build is going to take. And then once they give us a more concrete deadline or more concrete information about when they think they can have that to us, then we will update our timeline. But on this page, I just want to point out that you can click here to get on the Cohort 26 information listserv, and that will just get you where anytime we have any updates to the RFA, we will make sure that we send out that information right away to the listserv, so that way you're getting up-to-date information and not having to continuously come back to the website and check it on a regular basis. And so once we have that timeline updated, we will send it out. And then, of course, you can click here to download the RFA itself. And so just wanted to show that to you. And then I'm going to go back to the RFA. Sorry, I have a lot of stuff. I'm working on a lot of things at one time, so I have a bunch of things on my desk. So please excuse all the different windows that are open. Okay, so let me... So one thing I can say is the deadline for the receipt of applications is probably going to be pushed back. But again, I'm not exactly sure when that's going to be pushed to. So as of right now, it's January 24th. But once we find out how long the application build out is going to take, then this date may be pushed. It will most definitely be pushed for those of you who are applying for it's definitely going to be pushed for those of you who are applying for year-long and academic year programs. For those of you who are applying for summer programs, we have a little less flexibility in being able to push back the date. So I'm not exactly sure how we're going to handle that part yet. My boss, Dr. Killingsworth, has expressively stated that she really wants us to be able to offer this funding this summer, which I completely agree. It's just a matter of we were already kind of on a tight schedule in order to get it out for the summer. And so we just need to figure out ways we can get those applications possibly processed faster than the others, or looked at faster by the grant reviewers than others. Again, we still may have to push this date back a little bit, but hopefully not too much. We may have to push it into early February. Again, I don't know how much extra time we could give for those summer only applications, just because the turnaround time is going to be much less. And we want to make sure that we get those that are applying for a summer only grant. We want to make sure that we give you enough time to plan your program, get the training that you have to have, and then start your program by the beginning of the summer. So bear with us. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. We are going to put forth every bit of effort that we can to make sure that it does happen for this summer, and do our very best to make sure that you get your funding in time to have those summer programs. As far as everyone else who's either doing their program year long or doing just an academic year program, there should be no problem with getting you funding in plenty of time for you to start the new school year. So please don't be worried about that. Okay, so I'm going to, this is the RFA. And of course, you do have your table of contents. And I'm going to scroll down, let me see, to our dates. I think they're on page 9 and 10. So I'm going to go down to 9 and 10. Okay, so these are the dates that are going to be changing. So today is December the 10th. First of all, let me back up a little bit. On December 6th was our original online intent to apply form. That was when it was supposed to be completed. That has been pushed to December 20th for now. If we see that we need to push it again, we will, but for now, we're going to say that that date is December the 20th. That has also gone out via email, and again, we will put that in writing as soon as we are able to send out a updated timeline for you guys. Today is the December 10th meeting. Or the next meeting was scheduled, or the next event was scheduled for December 16th. That would have been when the EGAP application was supposed to open, but that is not going to happen now. More than likely, that will not be open until January, from what we've been told. We're just not sure how far into January that is going to happen. So once we find that out, we will update the timeline, and then, of course, update this virtual EGAP application portal training. In the meantime, this date is going to change to an office hours. So December 17th, 2024, from 2 to 4 will be our next office hours. And I'm going to continue to keep it for 2 hours, because I feel that at that point you will have had time to really read through the RFA, and there may be a lot of questions. If we see that, if you come in and we have lots of questions, we'll keep going for the full 2 hours. But if we see that they dwindle out earlier, then we may finish it earlier than 4 o'clock. But for now, we're just going to keep that on the schedule. So this will change to office hours instead of it being an EGAP application portal training. All the other office hours will stay on the same dates, everything that has been scheduled. We may add more dates as we find out when the updated dates will be. So we will not take any RFA application office hours away, but we may add some so that you have plenty of time to ask the questions that you may need to ask to be prepared for submitting your application when that date comes. So again, everything basically from this point forward will probably be adjusted more than likely by around a month, but that is just a guess, and we will definitely update you on that as soon as we are able to, so that you'll have plenty of time to be prepared. Okay, so I'm going to keep sharing this screen, but I'm going to go ahead and try to go to the chat so that you guys can go ahead and start asking questions about the RFA. So, does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, great question, Lindsay. So Lindsay Blevins from Tuscaloosa, she's one of our rock stars for 21st Century. She has asked about page 5, where it talks about the transportation allowance. And so, yes, there is, let me go to page 5 here. Okay. So, yes, so let me just back up a little bit as to let you know about how this grant is going to be, how you come up with the formula for how much money you can get with this grant. It is done on a per student and it's based on the number of students you plan to serve in your program and the number of hours you plan to serve them times $6. So you take the number of hours you're going to serve the students, multiply that times the number of students you plan to serve, that times $6, and that gives you a total. So that's in another part of the RFA. I will go to that in just a moment. But on top of that, you can also get a transportation allowance. And what's great, Lindsay, about you asking this question is you're one of the people that reminded me that this is something we wanted to do with this grant. Especially for schools that are in rural areas, we wanted to make sure that you had plenty of money to provide transportation to those students to get home for after school programs, or if you're doing summer programs, to get to and from the program. So if you are in a urban area, then you can get, and you're providing transportation, you have a transportation plan, then you can get an additional $10,000 on top of your whatever your formula, whatever you're supposed to get from what the formula calculates would be your allocation. You get additional $10,000 on top of that. If you live in a rural, or if you're serving a community that is in a rural area, and the way you know that is that they qualify for Title V, or they are Rural Education Achievement Program or REAP eligible, then you can get an additional $10,000 in transportation funds for those sites. So up to additional $20,000 on top of your regular allocation will be given out. So let me go. Okay, here we go. So here's an example of that cost method for funding. I gave a couple of examples in the informational webinar, but here's some more examples. So let's say that you're doing an academic year only for out of school time program, which would be a minimum of 300 hours. So just to give background information for those of you who this may be your first meeting, for a school year program, the federal requirement is for you to serve students for at least 300 hours. That is the minimum. And for a summer only program, it would be a minimum of 75 hours. So if you're doing a year-long program, your minimum would be 375 hours. All right, so here's some examples. Let's say you're going to serve 50 students, and you're going to serve them for 300 hours for an after-school program at $6 per student. That would make your grant that you're eligible for $90,000. Okay. Another example, let's say you're doing a summer-only program at a minimum of 75 hours. You've got 50 students attending, 75 hours per summer at $6 per student. That would actually be $22,500 is what you would qualify for. However, this grant would not be allowed to be awarded because the federal regulations state that awards must be a minimum of $50,000. So you would need to figure out a way to somehow either serve more students or serve them for more hours in order to get that amount up to the $50,000 minimum requirement. All right, another example is if you're doing a year-long out-of-school time program. So let's say you're doing the academic year and the summer for a minimum of 375 hours. Let's say you're serving 50 students at 375 hours per grant year at $6 per student, means that you would get $112 I'm sorry, $112,500 for your award. Okay, so that's minimum, the bare minimum. Let's look at an example where maybe it's a little more than the bare minimum, or a lot more than the bare minimum. So let's say you're doing a year-long out-of-school program, which is serving both the academic year and the summer. You're serving 120 students, and they're attending 686 hours per that grant year. So they're doing 510 after-school hours and 176 summer hours, which sounds like a lot, but if you do the calculations, that is very much doable. You multiply that times $6 per student, and your grant award would be $493,920. Okay, this is not including the transportation, extra supplemental funding. And please note that the maximum award is $500,000 for this cohort, but that is not including the transportation supplement. So technically it could go up to $520,000 per site. And also please understand that this is per site per year. So you would not, if this was you, if you were example D, then you would get $493,920 at that site for all 5 years of the grant, as long as you did what you're supposed to do and did the required monitoring pieces, turn in the data you're supposed to turn in, keep up with your expenditure reports the way you're supposed to, then that is what you would be awarded for the 5 years of the grant. Okay. So any other questions? All right. Lindsay's asking another question. On page 12, will our yearly federal programs meeting documentation with private schools be sufficient, or do we need to go back to them and get a 21st Century Form 5 signed? Okay, so let me go to page 12 really quick. So if you've already been part of 21st Century, then yearly you were supposed to reach out to your private schools to send out a intent to apply form, basically, or an intent. I'm getting my words confused here. I think it is still intent to apply, or intent for services form. I can't remember the exact wording of what it's called, but if you're an LEA, and you serve, well, let's just put it this way. If you're an LEA and you receive any federal funding, then you have to send out a intent to participate. Sorry, that's the wording. You have to send out an intent to participate form every year to the private schools that are in your area. And part of that intent to participate form is the 21st Century, the Title IV-B 21st Century program. And so, yes, that could be used, that could be uploaded into your program for that portion. Let me go down to the new private school form, which is on page 79. Okay. So this is the new Form 5 private school consultation form. And you would need to fill this out. Now, I will say, let me just look at this really quick, make sure I'm not misspeaking. Okay, so I would be fine. It does say that you were supposed to upload this particular form, but let me think about this for a second. My one hesitation in saying you can just use the other form instead is that this form specifically talks about how you are required to engage in timely and meaningful consultation with appropriate private school officials, and it needs to occur before any decision is made about your program. So So technically, you were actually supposed to, in the needs assessment part of the grant, you were actually still supposed to reach out to private schools during that time when you're trying to find out what the needs of your community are, and use, and reach out to them and find out what their needs are before you even write your plan. So it is fine with me. I'm trying to I'm trying to think of any reasons why you wouldn't be able to just upload the other one. So definitely for CBOs, this would be the form that you would need to use. If you're a CBO, an FBO, anything outside of an LEA that already reaches out to private schools, then you would need to use this form. But I think it would be okay if you are an LEA that already does reach out to private schools and ask them if they want services, as long as your form does have that 21st century program as an option, then you need to go ahead and you could upload that other form instead. Okay, let's see. Make sure I'm not missing any questions. Yes, so community-based sites would need to send this form out to private schools. Yes, you would. So, and it would just be private schools in the area that you're going to serve. So let me just give you a little bit more information about that. If you say you're going to serve students that attend a certain elementary school or middle school, then you would need to look in that elementary or middle school's attendance area to see if there are any private schools that are located in that attendance area. You should be able, if I'm talking to people who are outside of LEAs or outside of a regular school district, you have to reach out to the LEA anyway to form a partnership with them, because as I explained in the informational meeting, that partnership with the LEA is not only a requirement, but it's definitely needed, because you're going to need to collect data, student data from those LEAs that you don't have access to typically as being a CBO or FBO, or something outside of being part of the LEA. And so when you do that, you can also find out they should also be able to tell you if there are any private schools within their attendance area. And if there are, you would need to send this form out to those private schools to make sure that you have reached out to them, that you have, and again, you're supposed to reach out to them before you ever even submit the application to see what the needs of their students are if they do attend your 21st century program. And so you could send this form out, but again, I think it would be fine if you are an LEA and you want to do the intent to participate form instead of this one. It pretty much serves the same purpose, so that could be uploaded instead of this one. And then yes, of course, you could scan them together. That would be perfectly fine. Okay, charter school would be the same situation. So a charter school is treated just like an LEA. It's within the state. It's treated like its own LEA. And so you as a charter school, you would probably use this form. I'm trying to think, because even though you're treated like an LEA, I'm trying to think back from my equitable services work, whether we had any charter schools that actually served any private schools. And I want to say the answer to that is no, because a charter school kind of works by different rules than an LEA. And typically they don't have the same sort of attendance area that a LEA or typical LEA would have. And so there should be a typical LEA that has reached out to those private schools. However, if you're doing a 21st century program and there isn't a 21st century program nearby that is offered by the regular LEA, as a charter school, it would still be in your best interest to reach out to any private schools that are near to your charter school to see if any students would want to participate in that 21st century program. I know that could get a little iffy. But we, if that's an issue, then please reach out and we will figure out a way to make that happen and figure out some boundaries, of what you would actually be responsible for. Okay. Scan the intent to participate and upload them all together in one document. Is this how we upload to consolidated? Yes, Hector, that is perfectly fine. Just like you update, Hector is from an LEA, and he is used to having to submit that intent to participate form for equitable services. And so Hector, yes, you could, instead of submitting this particular form, you could just submit that same equitable services intent to participate form into your application for 21st Century. That would be fine. All right, if there aren't any private schools in the area, would the form still need to be uploaded reflecting that there are no private schools in the area? Yes, that is correct. So that is a good point to make, Alicia. Typically, even with an LEA, if the LEA doesn't have any private schools, then they just check a box in their consolidated application for their other federal funding programs that says we don't have any private schools. And so they don't typically upload a form. But in this case for 21st Century, if you fall into that, you would still need to upload this form to indicate that there are no private schools located within the attendance area, because we don't have that checkbox on the 21st Century EGAP application. So you would still need to upload a form. You could just upload this one instead of what would typically be uploaded for the LEA. So really either of these two forms would work, but if you don't have any private schools in your attendance area, this form would probably be the more appropriate form to upload, because it does have that checkbox that says there are no private schools located within the attendance boundaries of the schools that we are going to serve. Okay. All right, another question. Love all these questions. Thank you so much. Keep them rolling. On page 48, will we need to get all proposed MOUs contracts with vendors approved or signed to upload with the application, or is this just for joint collaboratives? Example, we propose a one-day session with a vendor summer of 2026. Would that contract need to already be approved and uploaded with the grant application? Okay, so let me go to page 48. 1 second. It's kind of one of those situations where I can't remember exactly what it says to do. Okay. Okay, here we go. Sorry. All right. So as you see, we have a sample MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. In past applications, the terms Memorandum of Understanding and Memorandum of Agreement have been kind of used interchangeably. In this one, we just changed everything to MOU, but both of them are basically the same thing. It's a contract, okay? We have uploaded a sample MOU for you, and you are supposed to upload a copy of all of the MOUs for your proposed 21st Century program. However, I could totally understand that if you're doing a year-long program and you have a plan to have a partnership or contract with somebody the next summer, a whole year from now, that you may not have that MOU to upload at this time. And so I would suggest that you would put in your into your application that the MOU would be uploaded for that person closer to the time when their services will be needed. But anything that is going to start like at the beginning of the school year, or if you're going to start something this coming summer, then we would expect you to go ahead and try to have those MOUs uploaded. If you can't have the MOUs uploaded, please make sure you do mention it in your application, the reasoning why you don't have that uploaded. You could also, just to be safe, put into the comment log. I'm assuming that that is going to be available for the application, but I will check into that to make sure. I know it's available for all of our continuation applications. There's like a comment log where you can put special comments for any kind of special circumstances. Again, I'll have to check and see if that is something that is a part of the original application. I would assume it would be, but I just don't know for sure, so I will find out about that. But if it's not there, you definitely could put it into your wording for your application, into your application details. Okay. You're welcome. All right. What other questions do you guys have? So something that did come up that, since I don't have any questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and go to that just to mention it, because it was something that was asked, and it was just something that when we were writing this, we didn't think about, but it's a question. Go to page 35 and talking about the performance goals and objectives. So if you haven't had a chance to read through the whole RFA yet, the plan or developing your RFA is going to work a little bit differently than it has in the past. And you have to fill out what's called the multi-year program design and performance form. And when you're filling that out, you will see that we have already given you specific goals that have to be met. So let me scroll up a little bit. So we're saying that all 21st century projects must address the following performance goals based on our 6 focus areas that are listed on page 15 in their objectives. So all applications, whether you're summer or year-long or academic, these are the performance goals that you need to focus on. So this is them. Students regularly participating in the program will meet or exceed state and local academic achievement standards in ELA, reading, and math. Students regularly participating in the program will show improvement in school attendance and performance. Students regularly participating in the program will show improvement in behavior during the school day by having reduced disciplinary referrals. Students regularly participating will demonstrate holistic health and wellness by exhibiting positive self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, decision-making skills, and self-management. Students regularly participating will demonstrate civic responsibility and strengthen their community through service learning projects. And families of students regularly participating will be afforded opportunities for increased parent and family engagement. So we say that those are must-haves. You have to have those as performance goals. You can add additional goals to that, but these are 6 goals that we want all of our 21st century sites to have. We also gave, for those first 3 of the 6, we gave required objectives to go with those performance goals. And it was pointed out that these really are more intended for a year-long or academic program than for a summer-only program. So the question was, what do we need to write if it's a summer-only program? We're not going to have an after-school program. We're only going to use these funds to serve students during the summer. Then how are we going to meet these goals? So the answer to that question is, when you're reporting these performance goals, you're not going to necessarily only be looking at data that you collect during the summer. You can still look at the student data from the year before and the year after to see if that summer program helped you meet any of these performance measures. So what I would say is that anywhere where it says, okay, so for example, the first one, it says 50% of regular program participants will increase their math grade by half a letter grade or 5 percentage points from the first marking period to the last marking period of each academic year. So what you can say instead of this is just say from the prior year to the current year, like it does in Part B, okay? So this would be for summer-only programs. You would look to see if there was an increase in math from the prior year to the next year. Again, you're not going to have to report this data as soon as the summer is out. You will report it later on in the year. And so you should be able to kind of look at 2 points during the year that are similar to see if you did see an increase. If you didn't, that's fine. It's not a matter of, we don't expect a summer program, especially one that's only 75 hours long, if you go with a minimum, to show a huge increase. But it'd be great if we show that the kids did not lose any learning during the summer. So please understand, especially for those summer only programs, if you see improvement, fantastic. If we don't see improvement, but there wasn't learning loss, fantastic. And if there was learning loss, then that may be we need to do something to, we may have somehow, given the kids some miscommunication or some what's the word I'm trying to think of, misconceptions, that may have actually hurt instead of helped. And so we would need to go back and look at our program to see what it is that we did and why the scores may have fallen. But just know that the intent and purpose of the objectives would need to remain the same. It's just you could change, when you're going to look at that data during that time span. And this would be just for those summer only programs. But it was a great question that I should have addressed in the RFA and didn't even think about doing. So thank you so much. Okay. For MOUs, will reimbursements be given for services if an MOU is not in place? Okay, so thank you, Alicia, for asking this question. Please understand that if you contract for services, you have to have an MOU in place. And this is not just an Alabama Department of Education rule. This is a federal program. This is a federal government rule. And actually, to be honest with you, I attended a conference last week that kind of went over all of the things that are supposed to be in a MOU. And we may even have to adjust the MOU that has been put into this document just to make sure that some new wording that is supposed to be in MOUs is in there. But the MOUs that we've used in the past are not going to be sufficient. Just throwing that out there. And we're going to, and for those of you who are currently 21st century program people that already have a cohort right now, this is something we're going to be talking about in our upcoming training at ACEA, making sure that we're not going to make you redo any contracts that you've done up to now, but any future contracts, we may have to use a different template to make sure that we are meeting federal requirements. But no, if an MOU is not in place, then it is difficult for us to provide those reimbursements. I'm not going to say that it absolutely could not be done if there's a very good reason for it, but typically we would be encouraged by the federal government to not pay for a contracted service that you didn't have a contract for. Also, another thing to think about is when you're developing these contracts, you need to really think about how you want the contract laid out so that you have a guarantee that the services will be provided. If you have a contract that someone is going to come into your school and work, we'll say 2 hours per week to do martial arts instruction for a year. So you've got it laid out in your contract you should have it laid out in your contract that they're going to provide so many hours per week for so many weeks per year for this amount of money per hour. That should be laid out in the contract. And from what I've seen from previous 21st century contracts, that's not always been included. So that's something we have to work on. And now that we know better, we've got to do better, right? And so when you're developing your contracts, you may want to break up payments for those services into installments. So maybe pay them quarterly and pay them after the services have been provided. Or if it's something where they must receive some payment up front, then yes, go ahead and pay them like a small percentage of the contract price to get them started, and then have installments set up so that after they've provided the services, you are paying them for the services that have been provided. That will keep them coming back and making sure that they are adhering to the contract that you put forth in place. Same thing should occur with your external evaluation contracts. We just had a situation last week where we had a site that that may or may not have had a contract in place. They had new supervision come in and take over the program. They weren't really sure if the previous program directors had done a contract with the external evaluator, but when reaching out to the external evaluator, they were able to find an invoice where they paid the person, but they couldn't find a contract. And the external evaluator stopped all communication. So they paid them the full amount of the contract, but they did not receive the services they were supposed to receive, and they have really no leg to stand on. They can't really go to court with these people because they didn't have a contract in place, right? And so that puts us in a weird bind where should we pay them? Should we reimburse them for those services or not? Because what was supposed to be done wasn't done. And so it's just best if you don't put yourself in that situation by making sure that you do have an MOU in place for everyone that you plan to contract out when you're doing any kind of services. And I'm not talking about salaries here. I'm not talking about that sort of thing. I'm talking about when you're paying someone, and it could be a salary type situation. It could be that you've chosen to, let's say that you are doing a summer program at one elementary school and you've decided you're going to hire a teacher from another elementary school, a qualified teacher to come in. You're going to contract with them to come in and provide summer programming. You would need to have an MOU in place for that person. But if it's somebody that's already works at that school and you are already the person that pays that person's salary, then it would be written in as a salary. It wouldn't be contracted out. So it just depends on the situation. It also could be that you're bringing in experts from the outside to come and provide specific services. Let's say you take advantage of this new rule where you can have an archery program and you decide that you're going to have someone come in and teach archery to your students who is an expert in archery. You could contract with them to come provide those services. But again, remember, anything to do with weapons, you would not want to do it on a school campus. It would need to be done outside of the school campus. So you would have to also figure out the transportation for that to get the students to that location off of campus for that archery instruction. So there's a lot to take into consideration if you want to do something like that, but it can definitely be done, and it's a great way for you to really make your program fun and engaging and give those students the opportunity to do things that they may not normally get to do in a school day, or that their parents may not have the time or the money to afford for them to do after school. So we highly recommend you bringing in contracted people that are experts. You need to be able to show they are experts. That's another thing that you want to ensure is that these people that you're hiring for these expert services are not just like your cousin. You don't want to say, you don't want to just be bringing some random person in who doesn't have a well-established background in education to come and teach STEM or to come and do literacy activities. You don't want to be paying those people. Now, could you have volunteers from the community coming and reading with the kids? Of course you could. You would need to do a background check on that adult, but you wouldn't necessarily be paying those people. But if you're going to pay for someone to come in as an expert to work with kids, especially as an educator, then you want to make sure that you can show that that person is a known educator who has proven educator who has, shown that they have had results in student improvement in the past and that sort of thing. Because really, technically, anybody could become a consultant. And so we just want to make sure that when you are hiring these consultant services, that it is someone who has been in place for a while and they do have, something to back up that the services they provide are quality, evidence-based services. Okay. Sorry, that was a lot of rambling. All right, what other questions do you guys have? I don't think of anything else has come up recently. One thing you may not have noticed yet is this is something totally new. And so we do ask for you um, to upload in the required documents, sorry, I'm trying to find it in writing, the resume for the person who's going to be your project director. That is totally new, but we do want to make sure that quality people are being hired for that position, because as we look, as you know, and I'm new, I'm learning something new every minute of every day, it seems like. But one of the issues I am seeing is that one of the project director is really instrumental in making sure a program runs really well. And so you want to make sure that you're hiring someone who does have some sort of experience with after school programs, or definitely has some experience in education, has some financial experience, and is able to do all the things that a program director needs to be able to do. So that's why we do expect for you to go ahead and know who that person is going to be and upload their resume when you submit your application. And that will be definitely a requirement. Now, can that person change later? Yes, that's a possibility. We know that you can't force somebody to stay in a job, but you can at least show us that you do have a really good quality candidate in place that is wanting to take on that position. Okay, so another question is, can we reach out if we have other questions outside of office hours? You definitely can. You're welcome to email anybody who is on this front page of the RFA. Let me scroll back up to that. That's on the very front is all of our contact information. I would say that RFA questions probably should either come to myself or go to the general email box. This is the one at the bottom, just because I'm the person who's most familiar with the RFA. And I will say it may be best for you to email the general email if it's specifically RFA questions, just because I would guess I probably get around 200 emails a day. And I try to keep up with them, but I'm human and sometimes things get lost in the shuffle. So I would suggest you email this general email box, and that way, I'm trying to make time at least once a week to go in and check that email box and answer any questions that come up about the RFA. Now that it's been released, I expect to do that more frequently. But you're welcome to email me at my regular email address as well. And you're welcome to email Alicia or Kelly or Carla, as well. If they don't know the answer, then I'm sure that, they are very capable of finding it out and getting back to you. So, and I do suggest if you don't hear back, if you do email me and you don't hear back within a few days, please feel free to just reach out again and send me a reminder, because again, I do have a lot on my plate right now, and half the time I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water, and I do try my best to respond to emails as soon as I can, but sometimes I accidentally open an email during a time when I don't have time to address it, and then I forget to go back and address it later, and I'm not in a place where I can write down a reminder to go back and address it. So it's just kind of one of those things about, those negative things about being super busy, that happens sometimes. So it's not going to hurt my feelings if you just send me a nice friendly reminder that says, hey, just checking in on this again, and I'll get back with you. Okay, so there's a question about job descriptions. Another change you're going to notice in this one, and this was encouraged by the Bruman Group, the lawyer firm. In previous applications, we had required positions that we did the job we did the descriptions for you, and we kind of enforced for you to have those positions. But this time we've decided to only include 2 mandatory job descriptions, and that would be your program director and your site coordinator. We're not going to force you to have a bookkeeper if you feel like the program director can handle those duties, but you're still welcome to hire one. Just anything, any position, we wanted you to have more flexibility in the positions that you hire for. If you're uncertain as to whether a position would be allowable, feel free to reach out and ask. We will let you know, kind of give you a ruling about that prior to the application going out. But you do have to have a program director. And just to be clear, the responsibility of that program director is to run the entire grant. Often when people submit an application, they submit it for multiple sites. Okay. So for example, I was looking at Tuscaloosa's application last night, and they have like 8, or no, not that many. It's probably about 6 sites for cohort 16. And so Tuscaloosa City Schools submits, they're the subgrantee, but within Tuscaloosa City Schools, they have those 6 sites that fall under cohort 16, and each of those 6 sites has their own plan, and they each get their own pot of funding. So they have a program director that is over all the 6 sites, and they have specific responsibilities. And then they have a site coordinator that is actually housed at each site that makes sure that the day-to-day processes are taking place, and they are there to be sort of the principal or the manager of that program on site. Okay. Now, if you only have one site, this is also a change. In the past, we've always said you had to have both a project director and a site coordinator. But if you are a subgrantee that is only submitting a application for one site, then you can just have a program director, as long as you feel like that person is able to meet and do all the things that a program director needs to do. I would highly suggest, if that's the route you decide to go, that you do also hire a bookkeeper, or somebody to help you with the data collection portion, the attendance management portion, and the ES2, or the financial records portion, because one person is going to really have a difficult time doing everything. And take it from someone who is, barely keeping their head above water. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. So hopefully having this extra funding, or the ability to have this extra funding, will enable you to hire the people that you need to put in place to make sure that the program runs really well. Okay. So the answer to the question, I'm sorry I kind of went on a tangent there, but yes, there are job descriptions that are in there, but it's only an example program director job description and an example site coordinator job description. And those are at the very end of the application. Any other jobs that you decide to hire for, you would need to create your own job description and upload that into the required documents when you turn in your application. Okay. All right. I know we're at 11 o'clock. So those of you who need to leave, please feel free to do so. I'm going to stay on just a few more minutes to see if there's any other questions, because I don't have anything else immediately after this meeting. I mean, I have plenty to do, but I don't have to leave right this second. I can answer a few more questions. Okay. Do those need to be approved the same way a new job description would be? I'm not exactly sure what the question is.
Amanda, so when we create a new job description at on our district level, let's say we're bringing in a district social worker, that job description has to be sent off to maybe somewhere. And I don't know, because I'm not on that side of things. I just know it has to be sent off for approval, maybe through AEA. There's somebody at the State Department that
Alicia,
approves a new job
now,
description for a school district. So I just wanted to make sure that we didn't
I
need to
see
go
what
through
you're
that
saying.
process as well.
Okay. I don't, from our point of view, we don't know. I don't know of any other entity outside of us that has to approve a job description. There may be something that I'm just not aware of, but as far as federal programs goes, or as far as 21st century goes, we do ask that you upload those job descriptions and we do look at them, but I don't know that we require they to be approved for them to be approved for like from another entity within the State Department.
Okay.
I would say that if you're an LEA and it's something that you've been required to do in the past, then you would need to follow your LEA's policies and procedures.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for elaborating.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard just to try to put the whole
It
thought
is.
in the chat.
Yes, it is. Any other questions before we end today's meeting? So just as a reminder, let me go back to our calendar. Our next meeting will take the place of the what would have been the training for the online application, which was supposed to occur on December 17th from 2 to 4. Instead of having that virtual EGAP application portal training on that day, we will just have another application office hours so that you can come in and ask questions. And I'm expecting lots of questions at this next meeting just because you'll all have time to have started working on your applications, hopefully. And probably we'll have more questions at that point. I
Alicia
know
had
that
something to add, Amanda.
oh, yes. Alicia, go ahead. She wants to elaborate on the job descriptions. Go ahead, Alicia.
You'll have to unmute her, Amanda. We can't do it on
I'm
our
so
end.
sorry. Hold on just a second. Let me figure out how to do that. Because it's not showing me everybody. Hold on.
Go to the participants at the
Yep,
bottom.
I am working on it. Oh, I see that, but it's not showing me the participants. Hold on a second. I tell you what, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and maybe I'll get my screen back where I can see everything. Yes, now I can. Okay. Sorry about that. Alicia, let me get you where you can let me find your name on here. Well, oh, here you are. Okay. All right, Alicia, try. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Or maybe you could step over to Carla's desk and ask or say what you wanted to say from her desk.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. So just to further elaborate, and I wanted to collaborate with you on this as well, Amanda. When it comes to the job descriptions, because we're no longer going to be providing the job descriptions for other positions that are going to be funded through the 21st Century Grant, wouldn't the grantee need to have a job description for anyone that's being paid for 21st Century? That includes bus drivers, that includes anyone like a retired teacher that wanted to come in that they're going to hire to work in that position.
Yes, that's correct. So anything since we're no longer providing those job descriptions, anything outside of the program director job description and the
Site
site
coordinator.
coordinator job description, you would need to provide that and upload it into the related documents for any other jobs you plan to pay for with 21st Century Funds. Just like you do with it, I mean, for LEAs, just like you do for any of your other funding, you know, Title I or Title II, you have to upload those job descriptions. You would need to do the same here. If you're not an LEA and you're not sure about that, maybe you're a CBO and if you need any examples or anything, that we would be happy to provide those for you. So just feel free to reach out and we can give you, try to help you with that.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that they understood it because I would hate for someone not to have their job descriptions uploaded, assuming that because we knew what a bookkeeper was from previous cohorts and not have it up because it may be different
Right.
for their.
Exactly. And then now I will say this, if you're planning on having teachers, you wouldn't have to upload a separate job description for each type of teacher you're planning to have. You could just do a general one. So there's certain positions you could do a general job description and that would be fine. Of course, for like a paraprofessional or an assistant, you could just have one general description. You wouldn't have to be that specific. But yes, any kind of, like if you're planning on hiring a nurse, you would need to have a job description for that nurse. Again, like Alicia said, if you're going to hire a bus driver, you would need to have a job description for that bus driver. Bookkeeper, financial management person, anything like that, you would need to upload a job description if they're doing that work outside of what the project director, the program director or the site coordinator does.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out, Alicia, and elaborating.
That's fine.
All right. Any other questions? There's a lot of people in here. Nobody else has any questions? Using my wait time. Okay, so we're probably going to go ahead and finish today's meeting. Again, our next meeting will be next Tuesday on December 17th from 2 to 4. Unless we see it needs to be cut short, we'll go ahead and plan for it to last from 2 to 4. Please go ahead and start working on your applications. I will send this recording to Erica Rucker from TPI and have her send that out to all those who may not have been able to come to today's meeting. I'll have her send that out to, she typically puts these on the website under the training videos, but then I'll also have her send it out to the listserv so that you'll have access to this Q&A session. And if any other questions come up between now and next Tuesday that are pressing questions that you need to know the answer to, again, please feel free to reach out to either, you're welcome to email me either, and you can email any of us, but you could either email me at my State Department email address, or you could email the general email, 21st Century email address, and we will get those questions answered for you as quickly as we can. All right. Well, we hope you all have a good and safe day on this rainy day, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here.